And he looks like he's just really gonna come right at you and nail an unsuspecting enemy. Everything this figure does looks awesome. Hello guys, it's Alan the Collector, and today we've got a special one. We're taking a look at the Fury Toys Samurai Animal Spring action figure and the custom kit he comes with. Yeah, I basically thought since it's finally spring, why not celebrate with an action figure celebrating its namesake? What we have here is basically a third-party Ninja Turtle. Now, you certainly wouldn't get that from the outside of the packaging, but when we get to the inside, the character is a little bit more familiar. I think this katana icon here on the bottom is an indication of who we're going to be seeing. And then when we flip it around to the back, we get 3 separate messages. One is a big warning saying that this is not a toy.
Not toys! They're figurines!
It's also not for children under 15 years old, which I hate to say it, if your voice be cracking, don't be cracking this figure open. And then we just basically get another more detailed warning here on the bottom saying that there are some choking hazards and small parts that aren't intended for children. Good thing I'm definitely not a child. So that means I get to open this as I please. And there's also one extra custom kit. This basically, it says custom kit in Mandarin, and then here on the bottom it says facial mai, which basically translates to not for individual sales. What could be inside here? Well, that's what we're about to figure out, so let's not waste any more time and see what ancient power is lying inside this box. And here we have Samurai Animal Spring out of package, and I know what you must be thinking. Obviously, this is just a clever third-party attempt to be able to make a Ninja Turtle action figure without having to go through all of the licensing hurdles. And it just so happens they started with my favorite one of the bunch, Leonardo. He is oozing with personality, and if you think he's cool now, just wait till you see what he comes with. What he lacks in quantity, he more than makes up for in quality. He comes with a pair of kunai, a pair of kusarigama, and 2 chains to go along with those kusarigama. But taking a closer look at Samurai Spring, there's so much detail that's been sculpted into him. Every ounce of his body is covered in texture and dry brushing. When we go to a samurai helmet at the top, we can see that it is painted in blue, but it also has this silver dry brushing to make it look like that blue paint is actually wearing away. I also like the way this gold paint really pops on these rivets along the helmet. And then it also has this silver trim on all of the edges. Nice emblem here. It has this gunmetal gray color with all these nicks and dings that have been sculpted into it. And then again, more of that kind of black dry brushing to make all those details really stand out. I'm not usually a fan of soft goods on my action figures, but this is done exceptionally well. It's clearly a blue scarf tied around this figure's neck, but it's been appropriately stained so that it looks like it's weathered. This guy has seen some things. We see some shoulder armor on the left side. It looks like it's made out of hammered metal. And then we have what appears to be a sculpted strap that goes across the figure's body. Nice silver paint for these shuriken. They're not removable. They're sculpted into the strap. A little bit of a bummer, but I can forgive it. We're gonna lift that arm up and we're gonna see that that strap continues all across his body. And then look at the ridges of his turtle shell. It has this yellow dry brushing to help bring out all those intricate details. I mean, it really does look like you're staring at a real turtle shell. Similar to the shoulder strap, we have a belt that is completely sculpted to the figure. It is not removable. However, we do have another use of soft goods. I don't like it so much right here. I can live with the scarf since it's mostly separate, but this cloth is supposed to be a part of this belt, and you can really clearly tell that this is sculpted. This is obviously just glued on cloth. It just doesn't work for me. More of those rough textures as we get to the legs. Again, there's so much bumpiness, there's so many wrinkles here, and then we can also see some musculature that's been sculpted into this figure as well. Nice use of that gradient going into the inner leg. We go from dark green to that lighter yellow green. We also get a little tiny turtle tail. It's a nice little throwback to the original designs. We have some silver eyelets that are sculpted and painted on each corner of the knee pad. And then we have this almost like lower leg armor or shin armor. It does have some blue accents painted alongside of it. And then it has these straps. The straps are of course blue. I like how those straps continue down to the bottom of the feet and in between his toes. There's even sculpted details on the bottom of his feet. It just goes to show how much love and care was put into this guy when he was sculpted. Now quickly going over articulation, this guy has a ball joint at the head, swivel hinges at each of his shoulders. He has a single jointed elbow that gets you about 90. He has ball joints on each of his wrists. No waist swivel, but he does have a ball joint in the middle of his torso that gives you limited range. Ball joints at the hips that are also fairly limited, but if you know how to work them, you can get more range out of them. Very generous double jointed knees. And then swivel hinges at each of his ankles. So as far as posability, he's about as articulated as any action figure you might find on the market today, as long as you know what you're doing when you're posing him around. Haha, look at that attitude. This guy is awesome. Now he does come with a pair of kunai. They're done exceptionally well. A nice hard sculpt. They don't have much give, but it also doesn't feel brittle at all. It has this shiny gunmetal gray for the blade, and then when we get to the handle of the weapon, we see this almost bone-colored white, and then it has this black dry brushing across it to help bring out the fabric sculpt. Now going back to the figure, as you can see, he has a very funny grip. When you go to the side, you can see that there is practically a perfect circle. It is a bit unnatural, but it does make for holding the weapons a heck of a lot easier. We're just gonna put this kunai right through, and he grips it just fine. That's not going anywhere. We'll take the other kunai and we'll flip it through. This one's also not going anywhere, but it's noticeably looser. I love the way these weapons pick up the light. And look at him go. That is so cool. And then when we're done with these kunai, there we go, come on. We can make way for his Kusari Gama. They pick up light very well. We have this darker gunmetal gray and then this lighter silver paint underneath to give it this really cool two-tone paint job. We have this brown paint on the handle here and then more of that bone-colored white with black dry brushing to really bring out the sculpt of those straps. Now Samurai Spring here can hold these very well, just like he did with the kunai, and once they're in, they're not going anywhere. They're solid. You could even have them dual wielded, I think. Let's see, can we do that? Oh yeah. I mean, look at that. I didn't have to even pose him very hard, and he looked like he's just really gonna come right at you and nail an unsuspecting enemy. Everything this figure does looks awesome. Now these weapons aren't complete without the chain they come with. It's incredibly long, like even longer than the figure is tall. So that is really, really cool. It has this dark, dingy gold color for the chains. And then it has this silver weight here. Now the end of his chain is about the same diameter as the opening on his fist. You just kind of slip that right in, and then you put the weapon in this hand and you kind of simulate like it has a chain on it, but that's not what you're supposed to do at all. The very end of this has this larger circular ring that needs to be pried open, and then it will actually fit into the loop. Now right out of the package, there's no way this chain is going to fit through that loop here on the weapon, but using some pliers I already pried open one of the chains, so we're going to see what that looks like in just a second. He looks so rad. This weapon has so much personality to it. Now you'd be forgiven if you thought that the strength of this weapon lies in swinging this blade around using the chain, but that's actually not the case. So this gray piece at the end of the chain is supposed to be like a weight. And so what the user would do is that they would use the slack of the chain and swing it around like a windmill. Just like so. That is so cool. Anyway, you would swing it around at any enemy who had a staff or a longsword, and you would chuck it at them. The weight would help the chain wrap around the weapon, and then the user could pull the enemy close to them, either taking the weapon out of their hand or pulling an enemy closer so that the user could then deliver the final blow, which I think is just totally awesome. Now it may look like I showed you everything this guy comes with, but remember, we still have a custom kit. So let's see what's on the inside of this thing that might enhance Samurai Spring here even further. This custom kit comes with 2 katana, an open pair of hands, and a more familiar Leonardo head sculpt. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and turn our Samurai Spring into the leader of the Hero Than a Half Shell. Come on. Perfect. And now we practically have a brand new action figure. His head is rather small, but it doesn't lack any detail. Here we see his eyes are whited out under that bandana, and then we almost have this brown or yellow outline around them to really give them some dimension. This guy looks like he's a menace. Don't want to be on his bad side. Now this bandana is sculpted on, nice dry brushing with black to help bring out all the wrinkles, but we do have some soft goods for the bandana tail. They don't really mesh well together, at least in my opinion. But the blues do match well enough that you can kind of put it out of your mind if it's an issue. Going to the hand, they're more stylized, they're open, and so I'm sure this will give you many more posing options. Now let's take a look at our leader's signature weapon, his 2 katana swords. I'm going to put one of them down. They're pretty much identical. I love the dry brushing that we're getting on these straps. I love also how the straps is slightly raised from the sculpt to help give it that extra level of dimension. Nice dry brushing with some yellowish tan here to kind of give off the impression that this is probably a thick leather, and then some nice black paint for the bottom, and then it just unsheathes, and when we get that nice silver paint, I love how reflective it is. Look at how that light dances off that blade. Now the only thing we need to do is just pop Leo's hands off. Here, do the other one in here, and we'll get his left fist back on as well. Hello. Now that Leo's knuckled up, we're gonna take the sword and we're just gonna weave it through his first fist. I wonder, can he pull off a 2-handed sword pose? Let's see. What can't this figure do, huh? He is admiring this weapon. That is so cool, so expressive. Let's take his other sword. We're gonna put it right there. Look at that, he looks so cool. No matter what you wanna do, I'm having so much fun with this guy. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. So much attitude in this figure. So awesome. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Remember those peg holes on the back of his shell? Well, those are for his swords. It doesn't matter which one you plug in. They don't go in any particular order. They're completely identical. We'll take each of those swords back out. There is a direction that the swords are supposed to go in, so don't just try to force them in willy-nilly. Very satisfying the way that just slots in. And there we have our stoic leader of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So cool. He looks awesome. Hold on. I want to get this open hand on him, see if we can get him to strike a really cool pose. Oh my gosh, you guys really need to get your hands on this thing. I don't care if it's first party, third party, NECA, Hasbro, Mattel, Samurai Spring, Leonardo, whatever you want to call them. This is probably one of my favorite versions of the Ninja Turtles, period. Part of me wants to leave this guy as Leonardo because, let's face it, he's so freaking impressive. But I have many Leonardo figures in my collection, so I think I'm just gonna leave him as Samurai Spring. What do you guys think? And if worse comes to worse, if I'm ever torn on which version I decide to display, I can always open up my second figure. Yeah, when I ordered this guy a year ago, I actually ordered 2 because I figured I might want to display him in both ways, so I still have that option. And as for size comparison, Samurai Spring is a small guy. He stands, by my estimation, just under 4 inches tall, but I do think he looks pretty sweet compared to the rest of the Leonardos in my collection. He's just a hair shorter than NECA's TMNT Usagi Yojimbo figures, and while Krang and his Bubble Walker are about the same size, he's completely dwarfed by enemies like Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady in NECA's Toon TMNT line. Here's how he compares to some foot soldiers from the Power Ranger Lightning Collection line by Hasbro. And even though he's in the 6-inch scale, he still stands about the same size as the 3 3/4 World of Halo figures from Jazzwares. As for Marvel Legends, here's how Samurai Spring compares next to the first appearance Spider-Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, and Deadpool. He's about half the size of anything you'll find in McFarlane's Spawn line, like Ninja Spawn or the Clown. Here he is next to some G.I. Joe classified ninjas. And finally, here's how Samurai Spring looks under black light. Not reactive whatsoever, but I do like the way he looks bathed in shadow. Now as for my final thoughts, if you couldn't guess already, Samurai Spring is a darn good action figure. Yes, he's small, but he's chock full of detail, his accessories are exquisite, and with all of his optional parts, you essentially get 2 different figures out of him. Plus, he has just enough articulation to make posing him around a blast too. And the good news is, he's back in stock, or at least up for pre-order at the time of this recording. When I purchased him a year ago, he was $50. Now his pre-orders are running almost $70. But trust me, if you are even remotely interested in this figure, that's a price you should be willing to pay, because the aftermarket prices...
Damn.
Is he on the pricey side? Yes. Is he without flaws? Absolutely not. But I think the pros far outweigh the cons in this situation. So, if my review has swayed you at all, give this guy a pickup. I think you'll like him. And if you don't, well, I don't imagine you would have a hard time getting rid of him. But that'll do it for my review. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Who is your favorite Ninja Turtle? Mine, of course, is Leonardo. In any case, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stick around for a gallery at the end. And as always, collect responsibly.